We'll discuss some Inyane Rosh HaShana and some Inyane Shofar. So the Mishnah tells us in the beginning of the fourth parak in Rosh HaShana, the Mikdash Hayu Token Avalom Medina. And when Rosh HaShana falls out on Shabbos, so in the Beis HaMikdash, they used to blow shofar even on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash. Avalo b'Medina, but not in the Medina. Outside the Beis HaMikdash, they did not blow shofar when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. What is the definition of Mikdash? How far do we explain Mikdash? So, at the Machlokes Rashi and the Rambam versus what is the definition of Mikdash. So Rashi learns Kipshuto, the simple explanation. Mikdash means Mikdash. It means it's limited to the Beis HaMikdash. And everything out of the Beis HaMikdash, is considered Medina. And the Rambam extends Mikdash not only to Mikdash, but he extends it to the old city of Yerushalayim, Yeratika, the walled city. And in fact, so that's the Rambam Shita. The Mikdash doesn't only mean the Beis HaMikdash, but it means Yerushalayim. And that could explain as well the issue is there was a major discussion post 1967 when the Yerushalayim was taken back by Israel, by the Jewish people. So there were two discussions regarding this. One was the question of whether there's halakha. The Gemara says in Moed Katan that when one sees Yerushalayim b'charbano, when you see Yerushalayim destroyed, so you have to rip kriya. The Gemara talks about seeing the Kotel, the Makam HaMikdash, Yerushalayim, and the Ari Yehuda. But so ripping at the Kotel, that's the minhag still today. But regarding Yerushalayim, so apparently before 67 they used to rip kriya when they saw Yerushalayim destroyed. So post 1967 it was a major dispute among different Gedolim. We'll just call it Rav Moshe versus Rav Selevan, but there are others on both sides, whether one should continue ripping kriya post 67 because it's under Jewish control now. So Rav Moshe said no. Rav Moshe finds that no more kriya on Yerushalayim, and the Rav Selevan said yes. What was the issue? What's the nekudas hamachlokes whether you should continue ripping kriya? Don't we have Yerushalayim? It's all built up, and even imagine post 67. Look at Yerushalayim today. It's all the different hotels, shwama places, etc. How could you call it becharbano? So Rav Moshe goes since it's the political capital of Eretz Israel, and it's dependent on Jewish control or not. Now that we have Jewish control back, so therefore it's no longer considered, at least regarding kriya, becharbano, and therefore no longer rip kriya. Rav Soloveitchik felt very strongly that it's still considered becharbano. But even today, even post 67, because what Rav Soloveitchik's opinion is, because where does Yerushalayim get its kedusha from? From its proximity to the Makam HaMikdash, its proximity to the Holy Temple. And by definition, if the Beis HaMikdash is b'charbano, then Yerushalayim is b'charbano. You can't have Yerushalayim, it's not a halachic reality. You can't have Yerushalayim b'vinyano and the Beis HaMikdash. Physically speaking, you could have a beautiful Yerushalayim, even under Jewish control. But as long as there's no Beis HaMikdash, so that seems to be working with the Rambam Shita, but the other, because the Rambam, when we have a Mikdash Hayu Token, the Rambam extends Mikdash not only to the Beis HaMikdash, but also to Yerushalayim. So Rav Soloveitchik seems to be working with the Shitas HaRambam in the opposite way, that the Rambam extends Mikdash in a positive way, that you could blow the Beis HaMikdash, you could blow shofar even in the old city of Yerushalayim. And similarly, we had the question as well by Nachem. Recently we observed Tisha B'Av, and in our tefillah, we only say it at Mincha, but different opinions on which prayers. We talk about Nachem, we ask God for comfort, and about Yerushalayim's terrible, it's debased, it's degrading, it's disgusting, it's shomema, it's desolate. So how can we say that today? So again, you have a similar dispute on how could you say it or not. Because some felt you shouldn't say it anymore. Some on the extreme felt don't say it at all. Others had more of a compromise view. Well, we can't say it exactly. Let's tinker with the text a little. Talk about it was desolate. And Rav Soloveitchik was on the other side and said, of course you have to say Nachem. What did it talk about? It's as long as there's no Beis HaMikdash, Yushalayim is b'charbano, and therefore you have to say it. So that seems to work with the Rambam's sheet here. So you have a machlokas here, Rashi and Rambam, when it says b'mikdash hayutokin, what is the definition of mikdash? Rashi goes with the simple Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, you could have Yushalayim b'vinyano and the Churban Habayis. The Rambam goes, it's the Haidohach. Yushalayim is part of the mikdash, the old city of Yushalayim, and therefore, according to the Rambam, one would be permitted to blow shofar. One did blow shofar on Shabbos, because that's the definition of mikdash. There was in the late 1800s. This was one of the gedolim. The minhag today is we don't blow shofar on Shabbos in Yerushalayim, but in the late 1800s, one of the gedolim wanted to blow shofar on Shabbos based on many different factors. One is the Rambam that we just quoted. Another is there's a riff sheet as well that perhaps the halacha is it's makam based in. That based on when they moved to Yavne and then they instituted to blow shofar, they moved the Beis HaMikdash to Yavne. So based on different sheets, he wanted to blow shofar in Yerushalayim on Shabbos. It wasn't well received by other gedolim, and it's not even clear whether he actually did blow shofar privately. Different, urban legend, different versions of what actually happened. But he said you should come to me anyway because I'm the one blowing the shofar, Jeff.
Look, if you think of the reason for the heter in the mikdash, isn't it because the kohanim are bakim? They're not going to carry something across the streets, shofar to be repaired because they.
Right.
Therefore, if there's no Beit HaMikdash, there are no kohanim. Therefore.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, well, if that's the reason, yeah.
Yes.
Right. So it says b'mikdash hayutokin. They used to blow shofar in the Beis HaMikdash. Avalom Medina. So Gemara wants to know, Minahani Mili, why do we make a distinction between Mikdash and Medina? Like, what's going on here? What's the difference? You mean, if I'm here, I'll eat kosher, but I'm somewhere else, I don't eat kosher, I keep shop. Why do we make a distinction in, obviously we know mitzvahs are Tuyas Paret, so we know we make a distinction between Eretz Yisrael and other places, but in the mitzvah of shofar, it doesn't seem to be a mitzvah. What's the difference if I'm in the Beis HaMikdash or not? So in fact, that's the Bavli's question. How come? What's the distinction? Why you say so? So therefore, the Bavli and therefore the Bavli wants to know what's the difference between Mikdash and Medina. Hence, the Bavli concludes, like alluding to what Jeff was saying, is that you're right. Really, Min HaTorah, there is no difference. Really, on Shabbos you should blow shofar wherever you are, whether you're in Hamilton, Toronto, New York, LA, Israel. Min HaTorah, you should blow shofar on Shabbos regardless where you are. However, as a Gzeira de Rabba made a Gzeira, we're afraid you're going to be so excited about shofar, you're going to go try to learn how to blow shofar. You'll carry the shofar on Shabbos, Yelach Eitzel Baki, and therefore you'll be Machal Shabbos. So to prevent Chilul Shabbos, so Chazal made a takana and they made a gzeira that no shofar. So really, Min HaTorah, you should be blowing shofar. It's midrabanan, they said no shofar. So if that's the case, so Jeff is being mechavan. So why don't we make a gzeira derab in the Beis HaMikdash? That's Jeff's question. So the answer is because we have a principle, Kohanim Zrizim Heim. Kohanim are very careful, and Ein Shvus b'Mikdash. We don't make rabbinic decrees in the temple, and therefore the original biblical law stands, and therefore b'Mikdash HaYutokin is the biblical law stands, no rabbinic injunctions. But outside of the Mikdash, in the Medina, there is no shofar. So that's the way the Bavli learns. The Yerushalmi learns differently. They'll agree to the same conclusion, but for a totally different reason. The Yerushalmi quotes, there are two psukim to describe the mitzvah of shofar. So we have the pasuk of Yom Trua, and we have the pasuk of Zichron Trua. So what do we need two psukim for? To teach me about the same mitzvah of shofar? So the Yerushalmi says, we're talking about 2 different days of the week. The Yerushalmi says, when is it Yom Trua? When Rosh Hashanah falls out during the week and I blow shofar, it's a Yom Trua. It's a day of the blowing of the shofar. However, when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, it's only a Zichron Trua. I'm only remembering the shofar because I'm not blowing the shofar. So the Yerushalmi learns this is a biblical distinction, that Rosh Hashanah falls out during the week, you have a mitzvah in our Torah shofar. According to Yerushalmi, there is no mitzvah of shofar at all when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbat. If that's the case, then so, what do you mean by mikdash hayitokin? So how could you, if there's no mitzvah of shofar on Shabbos, so why am I blowing shofar in the base of mikdash on Shabbos? So that's what the Yerushalmi has to come up with. It's a special limud that the Yerushalmi learns out from the smichos haparshas, from the Torah. It says Yom Trua. It's right in the parsha by the mitzvah of the karbanos. So the Yerushalmi makes a drasha. B'makam karbanos, it's always Yom Trua, i.e., b'makam mikdash, in the place where you bring the karbanos, it's always a time of Yom Trua. So it's a special Xeris HaKasav, only the Yerushalmi has, not the Bavli, that says you have to blow shofar on Shabbos. But if not for that, there wouldn't be any mitzvah. In contrast to the Bavli, which says, what do you mean? That there's a mitzvah in our Torah everywhere to blow shofar on Shabbos. It's just a Xeira D'Rabba. In fact, so even though L'maisa, everyone agrees to the facts, but mikdash hayitokin of all Medina, so my nafkamina, is there a practical difference between the Yerushalmi and the Bavli? Bottom line, everything's the same. Mikdash yes, Medina no. So what's a potential nafkamina? So in fact, we don't reject the Yerushalmi totally. You'll notice that in a couple of weeks, and you open up your Magzer, and you'll see when you get to the different, let's say, the Musaf Rosh HaShana, the longest Rosh Hashanah of the year. So it says in your Magzer, it'll be in parentheses, it says, on Shabbos, put in the word Zichron Trua. During the week, which is this year, you'd say Yom Trua. So we do accept the Yerushalmi somewhat that Yom Trua we say during the week, when Rosh Hashanah falls out during the week, and Zichron Trua we say on Shabbos. The question is, what happens if you made a mistake, and instead of saying the word Zichron Trua, you said Yom Trua, or the opposite, instead of saying this year Yom Trua, you said Zichron Trua. And Musaf Rosh Hashanah, the longest Shmoneh Esrei of the year, so either it's a 30-second nafkamina or a half an hour naf, depending how quick or how slow you daven. I'll leave that to you, how big of a nafkamina is it, but do you have to repeat Shmoneh Esrei? So obviously if you realize during, you just switch it. But what happens if you remember you just finished your Shmoneh Esrei and you realize you said Zichron Trua instead of Yom Trua? Do you have to repeat your Musaf Rosh Hashanah? So that would depend on this machlokas Yerushalmi Bavli. According to the Yerushalmi, it should be a clear yes, because you're davening, it's the wrong text. You're changing the mapei of the chacham. In Yerushalmi, it's clear. Yom Trua is only for the weekday. Zichron Trua is for Shabbos. So if you mix them up, you've changed the mapei of the chachamim. But according to the Bavli, we said really both Yom Trua and Zichron Trua apply equally to Shabbos and Chol. On the Torah level, they apply. There's no difference between whether Rosh Hashanah falls out. So therefore, really, they both apply to both days. It's a more better fit because you're blowing the shofar during the week. So Yom Trua, we go with it just fits better. But really, both apply equally. And therefore, according to the Bavli, you wouldn't. So how do we paskin? So we go with the Bavli that one would not have to repeat Shmoneh Esrei if one switch the words Zichron Trua and Yom Trua, because we assume that both Minat Torah, they apply equally to both days. Right. And another nafkamina would be as follows. This is more for the Sfardim out there, but they're too busy saying Slichos, they're not going to know now. So, but for the Sfardim, why is it only a question for the Sfardim? Because this halacha, we know when we have a mitzvah that comes mizman lizman, so what do? What bracha do we add? A shechiyano. When we do a mitzvah from time to time, we add a shechiyano. So on Shofar Rosh Hashanah, do we make a shechiyano on the first day of Rosh Hashanah? We're all in agreement on that, yes.
Yeah.
What about the second day of Rosh Hashanah? Do we make another Shechiyanu on Shofar? So that comes down to a machlokas Ashkenaz and Sfard. Ashkenaz do, Sfardim don't. So this question is only for Sfardim because we make a Shechiyanu anyway both days. But let's say it's the Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbos. They didn't realize you shouldn't blow shofar. They made a mistake and they blew shofar on Shabbos. They got 100 kolas in even. And then they realized afterwards we shouldn't have blown shofar today. Okay, now they show up tomorrow in Shul, Sunday. And they usually only make a shofar on the first day. Should they make a Shechiyanu day 2 if they blew shofar on Shabbos? So according to the Yishalmi, it's a definitive yes. It was a meaningless activity they did. At best meaningless, maybe they were in Avarian even, but they definitely got no mitzvah. There is no mitzvah. It doesn't exist. So clearly the Shechiyanu was meaningless, and therefore you have to make a new Shechiyanu on the second day. According to the Bavli, one can discuss the issue then, since that's the issue we're not going to have time to go into. If one blows shofar on Shabbos by mistake, could you get a is there a kiyum ha-mitzvah of blowing, if one hears shofar on Shabbos? Even though l'chatchil we don't blow shofar, but is there a mitzvah? So if you assume it would be, so then you could perhaps have fulfilled the mitzvah, and then maybe according to the Sfardim, there wouldn't be a Shechiyanu. They do. That gets into the Rabbi Ego will have to continue with. How do we, when the Chachamim make a takana, how much power do they have? So the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says, Yom Tov shel Rosh Hashanah shechol yos b'Shabbos. When Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, so the Mishnah tells us, b'mikdash hayutokin, they used to blow shofar on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash and not in the Medina. So it's a machlokes Rashi and the Rambam on what does mikdash mean. The Rashi learns kipshuto. Mikdash means mikdash. That's it. The Beis HaMikdash. And the Rambam extends it to the old city of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim Yaratika. That's also considered mikdash. In fact, that's why in the late 1800s, one of the Gedolim wanted to blow shofar on Shabbos in Yerushalayim because that part of the reason was based on the Rambam. There was more to it as well. And as we pointed out, it seems to be connected to the shaila they had when post 1967, when Yerushalayim we got back under Jewish control. The shaila, do you rip kriya on Yerushalayim or not? So it depends. Why are you ripping kriya on Yerushalayim? If it's because it's not under Jewish control, so now that it is, so then there's no longer a need to rip kriya. But the issue is because it's a proximity to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash. So by definition, to Rav Moshe felt you don't need kriya anymore. But Rav Soloveitchik felt strongly that by halachic definition, if the Beis HaMikdash is becharbano, so then by definition Yerushalayim is becharbano, and therefore, therefore he learns. He's probably going with the Rambam and in the reverse direction. The Rambam here says Mikdash not only means the Beis HaMikdash, but it means the old city of Yerushalayim. So too, Rav Soloveitchik says so too. The old city of Yerushalayim equals the Mikdash, and therefore as long as the Mikdash is becharbano, Yerushalayim is becharbano. Do you have a question, or you just?
So Rav Soloveitchik, when he would walk into Yerushalayim, he would rip kriya right away.
Yes, so I don't.
Before he got to the Kotel.
Right. So exactly how he worked it. So that's the different ways. Some people had in mind that when they ripped, when they saw the Kotel, they had in mind, I'm not sure what he did or not. I'm saying, but I assume he in a situation where
he would have.
Yeah, right. And others also. I think Rosh Shlomo Zalman set up it based on different reasons, because as long as there are churches and mosques around, as long as there are other houses of worship in Yerushalayim, you can't say it's bebinyano. So for different reasons. So, but the minhag seems to be not like Rav Soloveitchik and Rosh Shlomo Zalman, either because people halacha kedivra mekel ba'avelis, or because when you rip kriya on the kotel. And that was also the same issue by Nachem. By Nachem, whether you take Nachem out of the Mincha Tisha B'Av. So some felt yes, some said maybe tinker with it, and Rav Soloveitchik felt strongly that no way, you can't touch it. Anshe Knesset Gedolah did it, that's the way it stands. So either way, that's a side point. It's a Machlokas Rashi and the Rambam on what is mikdash. So whatever mikdash means, you used to blow shofar on Shabbos. If it's Medina, no. So the Gemara wanted to know, minahani mili. How do you know that how do you know Medina? No. What's the so that's what the Bavli asks. Like, what do you mean? It doesn't make any sense. Why mikdash yes, Medina no? Why not heichid? If you're not going to blow on Shabbos, so first the Bavli wants to suggest, well, it's based on two psukim. We have a pasuk Yom Trua, and we have a pasuk of Zichron Trua. So Yom Trua is talking about during the week, and Zichron Trua is referring to Shabbos. And therefore, it's no kasha. Yom Trua refers to during the week, and Zichron, so the Bavli asks, if that's the case, but Mikdash Heichi Takinan, how could you blow shofar on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash? It's Zichron Trua. Hence the Bavli rejects it and says, no, Minat Torah, biblically speaking, that's it. You have to blow shofar on Shabbos and Yantif. Shabbos you have to blow shofar on Rosh HaShana, whether it's Shabbos or during the week. So why B'mikdash? So how come in Mikdash we do blow and Medina we don't? So the Gemara says that's a Gzeira de Rabba. Rabba made a decree. You're afraid you come to carry on Shabbos, and therefore, in order to prevent Chilul Shabbos, so Rabbi said no shofar today, no lulav today, no Megillah today. So it comes out, according to the Bavli, Minat Torah, there's no difference between the Mikdash and the Medina. It's only a rabbinical decree. So why not make a rabbinical decree in the Beis HaMikdash? So we know, because Ein Shvus B'Mikdash or Kohanim Zrizim Haim are not worried about. So therefore they say, we make, so that's how the Bavli learns the Gemara. That Minat Torah there's no difference. It's only a Din D'Rabbanan that we don't blow shofar here, but really we should blow shofar everywhere. However, the Yerushalmi accepts that the Bavli's Havamina for the Maskana. And therefore the Yerushalmi says Yom Trua is referring to during the week. Zichron Trua is referring to Shabbos. So the Kasha, so how would he answer up the Bavli's Kasha? If Zichron Trua tells me no shofar on Shabbos, so how could we blow shofar in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos? So on that the Yerushalmi answers, it's a special limit, special Gzeres HaKasav. It says Yom Trua next to the parsha of Karbanos. But Makam Karbanos, it's always a Yom Trua. So a special Gzeres HaKasav only the Yerushalmi has, that in the Makam HaMikdash you always blow shofar. So it comes out, everyone agrees to the conclusion that on the Beis HaMikdash no shofar. So everyone agrees, but Mikdash on Shabbos you blow shofar, the Medina you don't blow shofar. Why you don't blow shofar is a fundamental machokas. According to the Bavli, well, of course you blow shofar in the Beis HaMikdash. You should blow shofar everywhere. It's only a rabbinic decree in the Medina. And according to the Bavli, no, really, it's only a din. It's a din of Shabbos versus Chol. Normally on Shabbos, Minat Torah, I don't blow shofar on Shabbos. Why do I blow shofar in the Beis HaMikdash? That's a special. That's a special Gzeres HaKasav. So that's the Machokas Bavli Yerushalmi.
But in Yerushalayim you wouldn't, according to the Yerushalmi. Unless you're holding that Yerushalayim is...
Right, so according to Yerushalmi, that would depend on if you... That would depend
if you go with the Rambam or not.
Yeah, if you go with the Rambam, right. Whatever Mikdash means you do, whatever Medina means you wouldn't do, right. So that's a fundamental Machokas, the Rambam and Rashi, but it comes out of Machokas Yerushalmi and Bavli. So the question is, why don't we say? So number one is how do we know that how do we know that the rabbis have the power to uproot a mitzvah min Torah? So we say they have the power based on the pasuk of Lo Sasar. Lo Sasar min hadavar asher yagidu lecha yamino smo. It says, don't turn away from the rabbis, even when they tell you left is right and right is left. So, I said, so Rashi quotes from the Sifri that certainly when the rabbis tell you right is right and left is left, you have to listen. But Kal V'chomer, when they tell you right is left, so Kal V'chomer, when they tell you
Right
you
is
have to
left
listen
and
to them when
right.
they tell you right is left and left is right. And Kal V'chol when they tell you right is right and left is left. So as I said, there was a professor who taught in YU for a short period. His name was Herman Wouk. He wrote, I don't know if you heard of the book, The Caine Mutiny. It was also a movie, apparently. Caine is the name of a ship. Mutiny is what happened on the ship.
Right.
So basically, he told the boys in yeshiva, he said, you know, I got the title from, the idea, from Rashi and Chumash. So we see from Rashi and Chumash, you have to listen to the rabbis even when they're wrong, because they tell you right is left, left is right. Therefore, community is about you have to listen to the captain even if he's a psycho. So one of the boys raised and said, what are you talking about? Obviously you didn't learn the Ramban on the Parsha. Because if you look at the Ramban, that's not what, he says that's not what Rashi means. Rashi can't mean that. The Sifri can't mean that. Why? Because it's a Mishnah in the beginning of Harios, which talks about
when they made a mistake.
Yeah, when a Beis Din makes a mistake, it gets into the whole details, individuals, Rov Klal Yisrael, but the bottom line is, if it's a mistake, and you know it's a mistake, you don't listen to them, you have to bring a carbon. So we see that you don't listen to the rabbis. So maybe Herman Wouk learns that the Sifri is being cholek on the Mishnah. Maybe it has a right to. But that's not the pshuto. And therefore, I'm just kidding, I don't know if you knew about the Mishnah. But either that's the one possibility, or on the other hand, Pashtus, we assume they're not arguing. So therefore, how do you reconcile? So the Ramban adds this one word, Nirin Be'einecha. It appears in their eyes. That we all know. We're familiar today with talk radio. Talk radios, you have a host who probably doesn't know much more than you, and basically whether it's sports or anything else, news, you call and everyone gives their opinion. You know,
right.
I feel this. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and of course, because there's no objective truth there. However, when it comes to halacha, that's not the way it works. All opinions aren't equal. It's like in any field. Someone who has, in order to have an opinion, lahavdil, let's say on Shakespeare, so you have to have, who cares? You have to have a PhD, you have to study it for 50 years, 20 years. But to have an opinion on the Bible, everyone can have the opinion. So no, that's not the way it works. I mean, you can have an opinion, but everyone can have an opinion on anything you want. But the fact you have an opinion, if someone who's been studying the Talmud or Bible for 50 years and you never master it, but at least you spend a lot of time knowing it a little better, versus some Amaretz who doesn't know anything. Well, I think this is what it means. Like, okay, who cares what you think? I mean, if I'm your spouse, if I'm your psychiatrist, I care what you think. But if you don't know anything about the topic...
But what about the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, Halomei B'Kol Adam?
Yeah, no, there's not a kasha. Yeah, so that's... you can learn from anyone. People could have different insight. I'm not saying the fact that he says something is automatically wrong. No, right. What I'm saying is, all I'm saying is if Ramosha Feinstein's quoting his opinion, it's based on all the sources. Some person says, you know what, based on I think this. That by itself doesn't mean. I'm not saying he's wrong. He could have a good point, and you should take it into. It's not a kasha.
Interestingly enough, in Torah people tend to do that, even though they're not experts. They come in, and nobody would come in and tell a doctor, you should take this pill instead of that pill. But in Torah, people tend to come in and have their own opinion and say, this should be like this and that should be like that.
Exactly. I wouldn't say right.
They don't know anything.
I'd say it's the most in that. Today, it's not uncommon anymore, but the people tell doctors also. You go, I'm not saying it's a positive. I mean, it's a positive now that people come in more educated and question the doctor more, which is fine, as opposed to this not knowing.
Right, that's true. WebMD.
Exactly. Yes, I'm just saying but ultimately, I'm just saying if your doctor tells you to take X, Y, and Z, and some guy says you should be taking this, well, obviously my approach would be go back. If you just forget about the guy, or if you take him serious, go back to your doctor and say, I was thinking, I heard something about this. Tell me why, and then he'll obviously have the doctor explain it to you. If you're not happy with the doctor's response, you can find another doctor. But ultimately, I'm saying is whether it's whether it's a lawyer also. If I don't have any law experience, I say, well, I think it's this. I might be right, but I'm saying is I want this go running out listening to me, and you could get sued for something. I don't know the law. You know what I'm saying? I could have a good idea because I know the Talmud, but you have to. So the point being is, So over here, to become a Zakin Mamre, you have to be on the base in Haggadah. You got to be a big Talmud Chacham. So
Last week's Parsha.
Exactly. You have to be someone who's. That's the advantage of being an Amaris. You can't be a Zakin Mamre. Someone to be a Zakin Mamre, you got to be Higia Lahora.
Right.
If your opinions respect. Yeah. I'm just saying is, but if you don't know, that's the famous story with Rav Moshe the Apikoros, that someone's goal in life was to become an Apikoros, right?
Right.
So he heard in this town in Europe, this guy Moshe the Apikoros. So he said, let me take a trip to the town, find out. I want to become an Apikoros. Let's see how it's done. So he gets off in this town in Europe, and he says, you know where Moshe the Apikoros is? He said, you mean Rev Moshe the Apikoros? Okay, I don't know, Moshe. Yeah, okay, whatever, Rev Moshe. Yeah, I don't care, where does he live? Well, walk 4 blocks to the right, make a left, make a right, you'll find it. He walks a couple blocks and he wants to make sure he stops someone on the street. Is this the way the Moshe the Apikoros? You mean Rev Moshe the Apikoros? Yeah, okay, whatever. Where is? Finally, he gets to his door. Geschmack. No mezuzah on the door. Finally, a real Apikoros. I'm in heaven now. He knocks on the door. He says, I'm looking for Moshe the Apikoros. He says, you mean Rebbe? No, he didn't say that. He said, yeah, that's me. How could I help you? He said, you know what? I've always been, my goal in life is to be an Apikoros, and I heard about you, and someone said, come down to you, and then I could get the scoop how to become an Apikoros. I said, great. Come down, let's. If you ever want a drink, a cake, no brachas, all that, great. So you sit down. Okay, so tell me, do you know Chamisha Chumshei Torah Baal Peh? No. Okay, do you know Shas and Poskim? Or no, maybe you don't understand. I said, I don't want to become a Talmud Chacham. I said, I want to become an Amaret. So Moshe said, no, you don't understand. In other words, you're just an Amaret. You don't know anything. You're not Apikoros. But that's a Madrega. To know everything I know. To be a Baki in Chamishe Chumshei Torah. To know Shas and Poskim. And then be an Apikoros. Obviously, a Madrega, I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek. But that was the point of the story, is most people are just Amaratzim.
Right. Most people are just Amaratzim.
Apikoros, you got to know. Saying to be a Zakin Mamre, you got to know something. Most people are just Amaratzim, not Apikoros. They don't. In other words, to be an Apikoros implies you have to know something, and therefore most people don't fit
exactly.
that. I'm not saying there aren't any, but it's very rare. Most people who think they're Apikoros are just Amaratzim. So that's the Yisod. To be a Zakin Mamre, you have to be a Giyah Lahora. So that's what he points out. So that's
Hora means you can paskin, right?
Yeah. That's what the Ramban says. No. He says, Einachinami, he says, it's Nirim Beinecha. If you're a Talmud Chacham, and you know the Beis Din HaGadol made a mistake, then you don't have to follow them. Then you point out the mistake, or whatever the case is, or in certain cases.
Right.
But if you're, let's say you're an Amma, or you don't know anything, but you know what? I read the Art Scroll English once, and and you tell the rabbi you made a mistake, or I read some. So then, if you think the rabbi is wrong, you follow the rabbis. Left is right. If you know they're wrong, so that's something. So we never follow rabbinic era.
Although in certain cases,
except the one exception to the rule is Kiddush HaChodesh.
Right.
That's the Gemara. That I feel, but Kiddush HaChodesh is an exception to the rule. But all the other times we assume no, and that's why we don't. As a general rule, we don't assume like Herman Wouk assumed that rabbinic psak is binding an error. It's not. It's only if you think they made a mistake. Don't worry. Don't go by you. Go by your rabbi. But if you know for sure there's a mistake, so then we don't follow rabbinic law in error. Yeah.
What about the case where they themselves admit they made a mistake but don't want to go back because then people lose confidence in the Beis Din?
That'll be that's a judgment call. That doesn't mean they can still bring a karbanos and that. They'll have to make a judgment call in terms of what they make public, what they don't, in terms of. In fact, that's the Ramban in this week's parish. I don't know if you got to it. If you went over the sheet I gave you.
I didn't go over the Ramban.
The 4 cases where normally when you get punished, you got punished over something you did in the past. But there are 4 things the Ramban points out where you're not going to be punished on something you did, but something which has to do with the future. So one example he gives is the Ben Sora Morer.
I read those.
Yeah, shame. Adam Zolam might even done, I don't remember. Mesis, you give someone over. But the one I'm talking about is Zakin Mamre. Zakin Mamre is killed not because he paskin, it's not the Etzem Sak, it's because he's undermining the Kolach HaBeis.
Right.
So same thing here. So obviously in a situation where...
His Pesach could be correct, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. He's a Tal, but...
He's a Talmud Chacham.
And if he himself, perhaps maybe he himself could follow it privately or not, that's a discussion. But him passing publicly again, telling other people not to follow it. So a Zakin Mamre, the concern is you're undermining the Kolach HaBeis. If you're undermining the Kolach HaBeis, so forget it, so then you're causing more damage now. So Beis Din would have to make a judgment call in that case. So that's another. It's another share I have to give is in terms of whether rabbinic law. Not that rabbinic law isn't binding error, but let's say Bizman Hazeh. Let's say science says one thing and the rabbis tell you another. Let's say the Gemara says this is the way it works. Based on science.
The Gemara, we tend to say Bizman Hazeh that the science in the Gemara the Teva was different.
Right, that's what we'll have to get. Let's say, for instance, I'm not going to. It's a whole share on it. Yeah, but let's say, for instance, let's say the Gemara says in Shabbos, Hahore Kina b'Shabbos. You kill lice on Shabbos, you putta. Why? Because the Gemara says because of spontaneous, or the way the Rambam learns in simple spontaneous. And today's science find out that it's false. So the question is, I'm just giving an example. So how do we relate to a case where, let's say, today's science, right, so I'm not saying so, today's science says it's wrong, so therefore does that mean it's us to kill lice today? Because we don't, I'm just saying, it's a Hoshira, I'm just throwing out the kasha.
Right.
But we get into that in the Chazon Ish. So that's the Ramban that it's only Nirin Beinah. So that's what the Gemara says in Yevamos, Yesh Koach B'Yad Chachamim La'akor Dvar Torah B'Sheva Al Taseh. That the Chacham have the power to uproot a mitzvah by telling you not to do it. In other words, if you're having a Mac attack, the rabbis can't tell you to go eat McDonald's. But if you're having, but the rabbis can tell you not to blow shofar on Shabbos because that's Shevi Al Taseh, not to shake lulav. So Yesh Koach B'Yad Chacham La'akor Dvar Torah B'Sheva Al Taseh. And therefore, however, they have limitations. They can't tell you.
Well, they can tell you they can disallow an avera as long as it's for a certain period of time. A harasha.
Correct. Yeah. So harasha, let's say Eliyov Bahara Carmel. Yeah, that's something else. That's a harasha. That's what the Rambam writes. Zman min azmanim. They can tell you, but they have to make it clear. I'm not touching what the Torah is. The Torah b'mkomo omedes. I'm just telling you is under this situation you could bring a bama, you could bring a carbon out. So yeah,
right.
So therefore that's what the Rambam writes, because why could they tell you not to?
I heard that once in an explanation of Lot's daughters, even though they didn't keep the Torah, that how could they have relations with their father? That in that time they thought they were the only ones on earth, so it was a horasha that.
Right. That's the only way they could keep the world going. And because in their minds, they thought they were the only ones around, even though they weren't. But, but that was their perception, yeah. And that's what you have to go by. If I think it's Pikuach Nefesh, I'm not saying in that case. In general, let's say Shabbos. If I think it's Pikuach Nefesh, I'm going to Machal Shabbos. If the reality turns out it wasn't, okay. Let's say 10 Hatzolah people come to a call. It's not like the first one, okay, you're good, but the next 9 are Machal Shabbos. Right. No, if you're going under perception, so obviously it's okay. That's the famous Maisa with the Chazon Ish.
How does it work? People call Hatzalah, let's say they broke their arm, they can call Hatzalah. Well, why? If you break an arm, then you should be able to manage until after Shabbos.
Yeah, so
it's painful, but...
No, so, I mean, once it gets into... I'm not getting into specific questions.
But everybody does it. Let's say you fall and you break your arm, you're going to call Hatzalah.
Is that the way it works? I don't know.
Oh.
But I'm saying it's right.
In New York.
Right, so it gets into Sakanas Aver, whether Sakanas Aver you can be Machal Shabbos for or not. Again, so it depends if you assume, right, do you know you broke your arm, is there an infection? So again, so I'm saying I think on the books you're right, but in reality it's not as simple. Do you know what you did? I broke my, let's have internal bleeding. I'm I'm not getting into the Shiloh now, but it's not. But on the books, in theory, maybe if it's a sakana teva, maybe you're not allowed to. But in reality, many point out
something like that. In theory, it's one thing. In reality, it's something else.
Yeah, because you don't know. You can. Well, I'm not going to find out. Well, if I if I have an infection, I'm just saying whatever. Either way, that's a discussion. I'm not saying it's an issue. But
right.
So the point being is. So this famous story with the Chazon Ish and the Chafetz Chaim that the Chazon Ish was once asked. He said, I think it was during World War or something, that basically the cases were people were getting there was no radar. So how did people bomb? They saw lights. If you had lights on in your house, you used to get bombed, right? So the trial was, let's say. There was a bombing going on, let's say, 100 miles away from you. I don't know, 500, whatever it was, far.
Right.
The bombing, you could hear the bombing in the background, but it wasn't something danger yet, right?
All of England got bombed, every city almost.
Yes, I'm just saying, so the Shiloh was like this. Let's say it was Shabbos, and you heard the bombs, let's say it was a couple of 100 miles away, but there were certain people in the town who were actually, they were very worried. Okay, the bombs are coming, we're next. So the Shiloh, so they allowed to shut off the lights. The issue was...
The candles,
candles, whatever it was.
Extinguish the candles,
right. Because the whole point is, or else they'll know, because if it's dark, they won't know where to bomb.
Right.
So the Shiloh was, they asked the Chazon Ish. So obviously the Shiloh is, it's either going to be everyone or no one. Because if two people, doesn't help that you shut off your lights if everyone else has the lights on. So the Shiloh is, so this is the whole town...
Meaning, what should they tell the community to do?
Exactly. That was the Shiloh. So he says... So he heard a ma'aseh from the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim went when he was in Radin or somewhere. He went to a town to visit, and they went to and they asked the Chafetz Chaim, the Shaila. One person came into the Chafetz Chaim and said, you know what? I'm very concerned. I wonder if I could work on Shabbos. I'm very concerned. I know the pogroms, the anti-Semitism, it's getting very strong, and I don't have any money, and I know there'll be a time very soon where I'm going to need money. I have to bribe the officials. I got to get a passport.
Right.
And therefore, so the Chafetz Chaim said, do you actually believe that working on Shabbos for you is because, like, if you didn't work on Shabbos, you're going to be stuck here and die? He says, yeah. He said, okay, if you believe that, obviously it has to be within reason, but obviously the Chafetz, he said, okay.
Then you have to work on Shabbos.
You're allowed to, and then about an hour later, someone came in with the same Shaila, someone else, and he said to him, do you really believe that? And he said, no, I don't believe that, but everyone's saying it, so it sounds good.
So he said, no, you can't.
He said, you can't. So the point being is, because perception's reality in certain sense. If you perceive it's a pikuach, so that's what he said here. So since that person, if 3 people in the town perceive it, so everyone's allowed to shut off the lights. Everyone has to, because it's not either. So he based his psak on the Chafetz Chaim. He said, okay, so in that case, it's a pikuach nefesh.
And each person has a different psak for them.
Yeah.
Because one case is pikuach nefesh.
No, but so in the case of working, it's an individual for him. In the case of the town shutting off your lights, everyone had to do it, because if you didn't do it, you're putting the whole town in sakana.
Right. So
I think so. Rav Shechter always says over. I think his father, Rav Melech Shechter, they used to, when he was when he was in New York or Philly, they used to have. It was before my.
He was in Philly.
That's where they're from, Philly. No, I don't know if he weren't in Philly. He was born in Philly.
Oh, okay. That's
why. That's one of the. That's why he knows a lot about all this American stuff, because the Liberty Bell about psukim from Yovel. So he says over.
The Liberty Bell has a pasuk on it.
Yeah, pasuk about Yovel.
Right.
So.
What's the shot?
Yeah, because the original people came over were religious people. They quoted the Bible all the time. In their mind, the
out of their mouth.
Judeo-Christian value. They went to the Old Testament.
The Pilgrims.
Yeah. So we had a lot of that stuff. Today, Western society is anti-religion. So he used to say that his father used to tell them that they used to have these tests. Like, they were testing. It wasn't a real thing, but test. Everyone has to shut off their lights on Shabbos because we're doing a test, right?
Right.
So I guess Rav Melech Shechter felt he didn't. I don't know the fact, but he felt there wasn't something he could shut off the lights for. He didn't think. Obviously, I'm saying because if it was a real test and you have to practice, you could argue you have to. I don't know whatever the facts. So the point was.
Right.
The point was he felt in that case he didn't.
Right. In that case,
maybe he realized the test was a joke anyway, so maybe no one else. Maybe if half the people weren't doing it, why should he?
The cloud.
Whatever the reason was.
If the cloud was all doing something, he would have to join that.
So he didn't do it. So the inspectors used to come and say, "Why you didn't shut off your light?" So suddenly you say, "Well, I'm a religious Jew." So sometimes they fell for it. Other times they gave him a fine. I'm just saying is, but. The point being is, if it's a real danger, you have to do it, and even testing it.
Was this the bomb shelters?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was this.
What was the test for?
The test, I think, it was also you had to shut off your lights because during those days it was before radars, so therefore the only way they could bomb you.
It was during the Cold War.
Yeah, if they knew you, probably then. Yeah.
The Cold War.
Yeah, so it was during the lights, so therefore they wanted you to have. They wanted to have preparation. They could go all dark, so no one knows where to bomb because I guess pilots didn't drop bombs unless they could see where they're dropping them.
Right.
So if it's pitch black, they don't know where they're dropping it. So with today radar, it could be pitch black. Israel has all the technology. The Americans. It's amazing what technology they have today.
The military technology, yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, we don't even know half of it. We only hear like the stuff we know. It's probably stuff that's been around because this private stuff is remaining private.
Because it comes out only later. They use it for military first.
When you have to get to the nuclear plants.
Like GPS, they had it ready for 30, 40 years.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, GPS, the military's been using, and they finally got it into the Hamonam now.
Right, and now everybody has GPS.
I know.
It's like a new thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So we said even the rabbis have limited power. Something which is mefurish b'kra, they can't. Something which is mefurish b'kra, they can't overrule. So that's why, in fact, that's the famous kasha of the Taz we did. How come? Why don't we apply Gzeira D'Rabba by Mila? If we say Gzeira D'Rabba by Rosh HaShana, and we do right. So he quoted two answers. One answer is so he quotes the Bach. The shaila is, why don't we say? Yeah, why don't we say Gzeira D'Rabba by Mila? Because he said different answers. One is because
one is because he's a mumche.
Yeah, mumche or people by sakana. But we'll get to the other answer. So again, the kasha it says Gzema Yisakin Klishir. It says Gzeira. They might come to
for that, there's two answers. Either it's not a klishir, it's a shofar.
Right. Or what's the other one?
Or the other one is that even if it is a klishir, you're not using it to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. You're using it only for a mitzvah.
No, one it's a musical. Right, one it's not a musical instrument. Even if it's a musical instrument, we don't say We don't,
it's a davar mitzvah. It's not for music. Right,
and therefore, and therefore they point out as well that if you by Shema Yisakin Klishir, if they apply it, you'd be okay the mitzvah of lulav lagamre. You'd be okay the mitzvah of milo lagamre. Not a milo lagamre, of shofar lagamre, and therefore Chachamim don't have the power. One day Shabbos, one day shofar, they can tell you not to blow, but 2 days shofar they can't. And that's what the Taz says by Mila. That Mila and Shabbos.
Right, because then they'd be oker the entire mitzvah d'oraisa.
That's what he says. They can't be oker. If it's something which is mefurish b'kra, they can't be oker. They can't be oker the mitzvah gamre. And then we got into the famous Pri Begadin now, that about how much power the Chachamim have when the right when the Chachamim say that we say lo sasim hadavar, so could they okay the mitzvah gamre that doesn't exist? In other words, or could they say they only can oker the mitzvah midrab? They only have the power to oker the rabbanim, but they can't. They can always tell me not to do it, but they can be okay. So, for instance,
that's machlokes the Rambam and the Ramban.
Right, the Getosis in the Ran.
Oh no! Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the Pri Megadim raises a shiloh by Kiddush. He says we have a mitzvah of Kiddush min haTorah b'dvarim, and we have a mitzvah midrabanan of Kiddush al hayayin. So he points out that perhaps when if one just does Kiddush b'dvarim and he doesn't do it al hayayin, does he get the mitzvah the deraisa without the durabanan, or he doesn't get anything? So that's what the Pri Megadins notate that the Chum have the power to okir a mitzvah legame. Once you're not doing it, so he quotes it's a machlokas, Tosfos, and the Ran regarding sukkah. That someone has a biblically kosher sukkah. The sukkah is 100% kosher, except the table's outside. So they point out that the Gemara says, "L'chiyamta mitzvah sukkah kol chayecha." So Tosfos learns that literally. You haven't even fulfilled the mitzvah d'Rabbanan of sukkah.
Right.
And the Ran says, no. Of course you fulfilled the mitzvah d'Rabbanan of sukkah. It's you haven't done the mitzvah l'hidura. And that's the same issue Rabbeinu Yonah brings down in the beginning of brachas, when the Chachamim say that you can only say Kriya Shema until Chatzos. They agree Minat Torah, you have all night. It's only Midrabanan they say Chatzos.
And that's machlekes for Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim,
right,
whether or not lechatchila or
right, and they say
Yaved.
Right, lechatchila b'diavad. And therefore the shaila is, what happens if I say Kriya Shema after Chatzos? So I clearly don't get I clearly did not fulfill the mitzvah d'Rabbanan. The question is, I still get the mitzvah d'Oraisa of Kriya Shema. So
according to Rabbi Gamliel, you would. According to the Rabbanan, you may or
right,
may not.
So that's the shaila. According to the way you learn the Chachamim, that's according to Rabbi there's something to talk about. Well, according to Rabbi, he's saying you can, of course. According to the Chachamim, it's a question whether they just told you not to do it, or they even have the power to uproot the mitzvah completely. So that was and then we had the Rav Chanan about Sadim B'tzitzis, the same thing, that if B'nai Torah you can fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzis, but the rabbi said not to. So if you're wearing these begadim, do you get makas or not? Do I say you violate shatnez?
If you're wearing tzitzis that aren't the tzitzis that the rabbi
right,
said
it's kala elon, it's not the proper.
The wrong color.
Do I say now they uprooted the mitzvah? If they uprooted the mitzvah, then you're wearing kilayim shelo b'makom mitzvah and you get makas, or they say no. The mitzvah B'nai Torah you're getting is just the rabbi told you not to do it.
Right.
Right. And then we discussed this Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank wants the miyashiv saying.
I heard about somebody who on Shabbos he wears regular talis like everybody else, but during the week he wears techeles tzitzis in and regular tzitzis out.
Wait, what's this? And during the week he does what?
During the week he wears techeles tzitzis in and regular tzitzis out.
What do you mean, like his? What do you mean? His beged katan he wears inside with techeles?
Right.
And his talis gadol during the week.
No, and then he wears another pair of tzitzis that are regular, just out.
Wait, but I'm saying, what do you mean? You're talking about talis katan or talis gadol?
Like I'm wearing now, talis katan.
So he's wearing two pairs?
Two pairs.
Okay, so one pair.
On Shabbos,
wait, so
wear
one pair regular, one pair techeles.
Right.
He wears two pairs at the same time.
Right.
Like Rav Scheinberg, but
is there any merit to doing that, or it's?
And then in Shabbos he does what?
On Shabbos he just wears a regular talis because he wants to fulfill techeles, but he doesn't want to be forced on tzibor.
So why Shabbos is different?
So Shabbos you can't wear two talesim, otherwise it looks weird.
Wait, we're talking about talis gadol?
So he'll wear a talis katan that has techeles, and the talis gadol has.
But so talis katan he could always wear. How would anyone see it?
Right, exactly.
So what do you mean? So
that's what he does.
So talis katan he could wear. He wears techeles whether it's ben b'chol ben b'Shabbos.
Right, and b'chol.
And talis gadol. So what's the difference?
He'll wear two pairs of talis katan.
Oh, so okay, so it is. That's what I'm saying. So
because he was concerned about portion of tzibor, but he also wants to be mechaim techeles.
Right, so talis gadol, he always wears non-techeles.
Right.
Okay, talis katan during the week. So what is it? No one knows what he's wearing during the week. Why does he need two of them for? Just wear one with techeles.
So he'll wear inside with techeles.
But why does he need another one?
Because he wants outside also. Because all the people in the community wear outside.
Oh, you mean
somebody.
Oh, you're saying okay. He's saying he wears two pairs of sisters, but one he wears the strings outside, one he wears inside. Yeah, I would. Let's put it this way. Honestly, I wouldn't say. I mean, that's not the minhag that people
thought it was
wear.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I think I would definitely. I mean, it could be. You know, in terms of, well, I don't know if it's mixed ikihur because no one knows what he's doing, but I wouldn't. That's what I mean. The minhag is not to wear two pairs of talis. I'm not saying you can't because Rav Scheinberg wore 40.
When I heard about
it
sounded like Rav Scheinberg.
Yeah, but he just came to this conclusion on his own, or some Rabbi told him to do this.
I don't know. It's somebody in Flatbush in the shul where I daven, so I was.
But is this a common practice? So what I did hear is
no, he just
I don't know.
He's the first one I heard like that.
Yeah, so that's a shiloh. Whether so what I heard is there's certain I'll give a whole share on Tchelis one time, and I'll fill you in on the reality. But I'm saying is, but I heard there's certain Rosh Yeshivas in Brooklyn who feel you should be wearing Tchelis. I'm not saying it's the majority. I'm just saying there is some. What happened was I heard this I heard from a reliable source. He was wearing Talis Gadol. He wore non-Tchelis, but his Talis Katan he wore Tchelis. Because it was tucked in, so no one knew it.
Right.
And I guess one time during Shir, his Talis Katan came out, and the kids saw he was wearing Tchelis, and it was a big uproar.
Right.
So he made sure that his Talis Katan didn't come out anymore. So I understand Talis Katan inside. There's a separate shiloh, and if you actually. So I understand if I don't know if it is a psak, if it's an individual thing, but if you hold you should be wearing tchelet, but then you're saying means you're just raising.
Because he's concerned for Parish Minat Tzibur also.
Yeah, but is that a Parish Minat Tzibur? I'm just saying is.
Well, nobody else in the shul in 5
I know, but right. So it would be Mixi Ki Yehura. So according, I understand what he's saying.
In which case, Mixi Ki Yehura, if you just keep him inside, he doesn't have to.
I'm saying Rosh Hashanah would say, what do you mean Mixi Ki Yehura? It's not Mixi Ki Yehura. Mixi Ki Yehura you say on a meat. You say on a meat that's. It all depends what you hold. Rosh Hashanah holds you have a chiyuv to wear tcheles, and if you don't, it's Baal Tigla. I'm not getting into that now. But basically, Rav Shechter holds you have a chance. It's at least it's a suffix and a mitzvah aseh min Torah. That's not mitzvah kiyur. You have a chiyuv to do it. So
right.
According to Rav Shechter, you can't. It's not mitzvah kiyur. I understand what he's saying. Is I wouldn't want to. You don't want to walk in. Especially, I'm not saying he might not hold as strongly as her. She might think, well, I'm not sure, so therefore I'll do it. I understand because basically if he walks into Flapish with his tcheles, certain parts he'll be
right,
looked down.
Yeah, would be strange.
Yeah, exactly, strange, and not only that.
They don't look down on people, but
no, but strange by itself isn't enough. But the problem is if they're not gonna, because there's the point of, again, if the kid's doing it on his own, then I wouldn't be doing it on my own. I'd speak to your Rabbi, whoever it is, and ask him what to do. If his Rabbi said to, in other words, I can't advise them because I don't know who I'm talking to, and I don't know, I'd have to know the shul and Flapish he's in, the people, and I have to know the kid, and then I could give an answer on it. I'm not judging him. I'm judging him if he's doing it on his own, he has a problem. He shouldn't be making these decisions on his own. Especially something like this.
No.
Because wearing 2 pairs of tzitzis is being Porish Minat Tzibur. It's something no one does today.
Right.
So you shouldn't be wearing, who are you to wear 2 pairs of tzitzis? That's more, in other words, wearing 2 pairs of tzitzis might be more of a Porish Minat Tzibur than putting tcheles on your tzitzis. You know what I'm saying?
But that nobody sees.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Not a Porish. It's not a Porish Minat Tzibur because it's private. But I'm saying it. But you're not keeping because the bottom line is, and also what the other people hold. If they hold there's an issue to wear tcheles, which some do. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'll just tell you quickly because it's a whole share on it. But it's a fundamental machlokas. Rav Herschel Schachter on one side versus Rav Shlomo Miller on the other side.
Rav Shlomo Miller from Toronto.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's limited to those two, but these are the two. So
two people who have
they basically hold. They're both minakatza la katza. According to Rav Shlomo Miller, he says, according to me, that I don't believe it's the real tcheles. So it's no problem wearing tcheles. You don't gain anything, but there's no isser. See, Rav Miller says, according to me, you hold it's not the real tcheles, it's kali ilan. So you still get the mitzvah, even if you're wearing it. However, according to you didn't say Rav Shechter by name, but according to those sheitas who hold that it is, he thinks it's Baal Tosef. he says you're over or about Tigra.
Well, wouldn't it be going?
Why is it about Tigra? Because he says
it would be adding in a basara that we don't have anymore.
no. He's saying no because he's saying is because the different sheets is in terms of how many strings get tcheles or not. So let's assume really it's only one tcheles. It's different sheets. 3 sheets in the Rishonim, where it's 1, 2, or 4.
Right, the Rambam. And
yeah,
the
Rambam, Rashi, Ravid.
So
I'm just saying.
Right, okay.
So therefore, he says if really the luck is 1 and you put 2, so then it's Baal Tosef. Or let's say it's 2. So Rav Miller's sheet is, if according to me, it's harmless for you to wear. Meaning, because you shouldn't do it, but you're not going to lose anything. But according to you, I think if I work with Shitaso and you're over about Tosef, so according to Rabbi Miller, he says, I hold it's nothing, so therefore it's meaningless, don't do it, but there's no Aveira per se if you did it. But if I held it was good, I hold you're over, and Rav Shechter is on the other side of the coin. He says it is good, it's not an issue. He says, what do you mean? You go with the Klali Hara. We always have, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't pass in every Shaila. Okay, so we pass like the Rambam, and whoever I pass like any Shaila, you take the Kloli Harad and you come to the Psak.
Right.
If that's the case, then you never be able to do anything. But he says regarding that, he says,
how do they determine Psak if it's not from Shulchan Aruch?
No, that's in No, you go with first. How did Shulchan Aruch get it? You go with the Rishonim, Achronim.
Right. And then the
Mechaber was the Chiddush before the Mechaber came along.
The Rov.
Yeah, whatever the Kloli Hara, whatever. We don't have to discuss what they are. We could have a machlokas what they are, but they're whatever they are. And Rav Shechter says the opposite. Rav Shechter says, you know what? Rav Shechter says, anyone who doesn't wear tcheles today is over Baal Tigra. What do you mean? What do you mean you're over Baal Tigra? Rov Chai Yisrael is over Baal Tigra according to him. How is it Baal Tigra if you don't wear tcheles? Because like this. Because he's assuming it's a 99% chance it's tcheles. That's basically what he assumes.
They did find all those shells on that piece.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying it. I'm
not agreeing or disagreeing.
Right, I'm not either.
I've heard either side.
I've heard
both sides.
I've heard someone say there's 0% chance. That to me, I'm not saying it's 99%. I think it's 0. I say it's at least 50-50. I would say. And the more I hear, the more I say it's more than 50-50. But at least I'll call it a suffix, and I'm willing to call it a suffix in halacha. I can't. To me, to say it's a 0%, I think you're in denial.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
But either but I'm saying that's just me. I'm not saying that person's a big talmid. I heard it was. I'll even tell you who it is. Because he's a Rav Reisman. He's a big talmid.
Rav Reisman from Flatbush?
I heard him give a tcheles here, and I heard him say that. To me,
okay.
I disagree with that, but he's entitled.
I mean, and he's smart.
Entitled to his opinion. He did his research. Exactly.
So
he said. So I agree with that. So I agree. If it's a 0% chance you should wear. But I'm saying once you say that, there's nothing to talk about. Then no one should be wearing it. That's I'm not. And if you say it's a 100% chance, then of course you should be. I'm interested in the principle, not necessarily what it is. Yeah.
Right.
So either way, so it goes like this. So Rav Shechter says like this. He thinks bottom line is it's a 99% chance that it is. So he says like this. There's a Turi Evan in the Beis HaLevi that says as follows. Let's say there's a halacha by karbanos. Let's say you have to. The halacha is certain karbanos you have to sprinkle on all 4 corners of the mizbeach, and other karbanos on one side. Keren, karnos, or not, with a vav, without a vav. So he says, let's say there's certain karbanos where that if you do the wrong amount, the whole thing's puzzle. So just forget about that. But there's certain karbanos you really should do. You should do 4. But if you do 1, it's still good b'diavad. So the Turi Evan writes, that's Baal Tigra. That if Baal Tigra, but if you don't do a mitzvah aseh, that you're mevatel a mitzvah aseh. What's Baal Tigra?
Right.
Is when I have an opportunity to do a mitzvah b'shleimuso, and I do the b'diavad. Then I'm over Baal Tigra. That's the chiddush of the Beis HaLevi and the Turi Evan.
Right.
You got that? That lichatchila, if I should do the mitzvah b'shleimuso. So if it's not good at all, that's not about Tigra, that's nothing. So if I could do a mitzvah b'shleimuso and I choose to do it b'diavad, so that's what Rav Shechter says. You have an opportunity, we have the tcheles today, so you can do everyone agrees sitzis b'shleimuso is the tcheles. So according, again, you have to work with their assumptions. If you don't assume it's it, but he's saying, but if you have, but he's saying.
We have a visitor. Should I pause you everything?
No, it's okay. I'll be back in a second. Hi.
Thanks.
I'll just tell her.
What?
Rabbi Selevan is just taping. We're just finishing up.
Okay.
So he says like this. He says if you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah b'shleimus, so like tzitzis with cheles, and now you wear tzitzis without cheles, so you fulfill your mitzvah of tzitzis,
Right.
but you violate Baal Tigra. That's the thing. You have both extremes. You can't win. According to Rabbi Miller, but I'm saying you have to take a stand. According to Rav Sholem Miller in Toronto, if you wear tcheles, you could be in violation about Tigra. And according to Rav Schechter, if you're not wearing them, so you can't just say, well, I'll just take. So either way, you're taking a stand one way
maybe
or
that guy in Flatbush is wrong because
right. It depends. According to him, he might be violating both.
And then according to Gemara also that whatever something and then your hediot goes like with the chumras of both.
Yeah, that's the
chulas of
right.
both.
That's the chumrah. Right. He says someone who follows
like
the kula. Yeah, the Gemara in Arabic. Someone who follows the kula of Beis Hillel is a fool, and someone who follows all the stringencies of Beis Shammai is a fool walking in the darkness, taking every chumrah. You have to have a Rebbe, you have to know, and you have to have a balance in life. You can't just say, well, I heard this person said this, therefore you take on a chumrah. You have to either go by the majority or you have a specific Rebbe you follow and you go with him, yeah.
I find for every chumrah I take on, it's only because I learned the sugya well, and then it's a new thing that I didn't know before, and because of my new understanding, it's something else.
Right, that has to do also. Brisker chumras are different than other chumras. Brisker chumras is because they learn the sugya, it's a machlokas rishonim, and since they have a chakira, both sides sound good, they take on. And therefore, so at least I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do. I'm saying at least brisker chumras have basis. It's based on Gemara's Rishonim, as opposed to more chumras made up on very lack of evidence. I'm not saying you should take on chumras or not take on chumras. I'm just pointing out brisker chumras. At least they make sense. I'm not saying make sense to do. They make sense at least when they do them. If you're a brisker and you want to do that, so that's up to you. If you're a brisker, you're bimach. That's a way of life.
Right.
Briskers. But I'm saying, many other people take a chumrah, they don't even know what to do, and they don't even know where the chumrah came from. That's a separate discussion. The Torah describes the mitzvah shofar as a yom trua yelachem. It's okay?
Yeah.
So it's very vague. The Torah doesn't. What does that mean? It's a yom trua. In other words, how does one actually fulfill the mitzvah of shofar? So is the ikar the shmiya shofar, or is the ikar the tekiah shofar? In other words, obviously you need both. You need someone blowing the shofar, and you need someone. It has to be heard. So therefore, the Gemara is in both directions. If the Gemara if you blow shofar into the pit, so if you hear the kol havara, you yotze. But if not, if you hear the kol havara, if you hear the echo, it's no good. So we see the ikar is the tekiah, because what? In other words, the ikar is the shmiya because you're blowing it the same way, you're just not hearing it. On the other hand, the lach is you need someone who's mechuyev b'davar to blow the shofar. So that's the raya. It must be the tekiah. Either way, so different rayas both ways. So it's a machlokas rishonim. So my nafkamina. Either way, come Rosh HaShana, someone's going to blow the shofar and we're all going to hear the shofar. So my nafkamina. If I say the mitzvah tekiah, the mitzvah shmiya, either way I'm going to be yotze. So the first nafkamina is the nusach habracha. Obviously, do I make the bracha on hearing the shofar or on blowing the shofar? So according to the Rambam, the mitzvah shmiya, you make it on the hearing. According to Rabbi Tam, it's on the blowing. So in addition to this, the Mefarshim point out that it's a double issue. Not only is it a machlokas on whether the mitzvah is hearing or blowing, but on the prefix. al and la. The Rambam in Hilchos Brachas, based on the Gemara Pesachim, gives us the principle of when do you do la, when do you do al. If it's over last yasa and it's la, if not it's al. If it's a chova versus rishus, it's la and al. Or if you're doing a mitzvah for other people, it's al. So based on the Rambam's klal, we see it's Roshitas, and the Rambam who holds the mitzvah shmiyah, everyone doing it themselves, so you make it l'shmoa. But according to Rabbeinu Tam, that the mitzvah is al, so therefore one person is doing it for everyone. That's one nafkamina. Another nafkamina is the case of shofar hagazo. Is a shofar gazo yatsa or eno yotze? So it's a machlokas rishona. What's the issue?
Right.
According to the Rambam, yotze because it's a mitzvah of shmiyah. According to the Agos Ashrei, it's a no-go because if the mitzvah is tchiyah.
It also says it's a mitzvah, it's a maisa, right?
Right, so therefore, right. No, therefore, according to the Rambam,
it's a maisa gazela.
Right. So according to the Rambam, shofar gazo yatsa because the mitzvah is shmiyah. But if the mitzvah is tekiah, so then it's a no-go. So that's where we got into the famous Minchas Chinuch about the difference between matzah gzula versus masha you used to be over Daled Amas per Shus Harabim or to be Motzi or Rishus or Rishus. The halacha is if you eat that matzah, you yotze. But if you use stola matzah, it's a no-go. Right?
Right.
So they point out that difference is, when do we say mitzvah bab aveira? It's at the moment you're doing the mitzvah. When you're doing the aveira, when you're doing the mitzvah, the aveira is still going on. Like when you're carrying the mat, when you're shaking a matzah gzula, so it's screaming, I'm stolen. But if you're carrying matzah, there's machal Shabbos on, so then it's not a problem because there's no isser for there's no isser on the matzah to keep Shabbos. It's on the gavra, and therefore, since when there's a chaftzah mitzvah, the old is tekiah, so then it's a problem mitzvah ba'avera. Because at the moment you're shaking, you're blowing the shofar is screaming, I'm stolen. But if the mitzvah is shmiyah, it's just incidental to the tekiah and it's not a problem. And perhaps, so that's the nusach habracha, and there's the issue of shofar gazo, and we'll see next time perhaps as well, there'll be a difference of mitzvah strichas kavana. In other words, let's say, the Rambam writes because shofar needs kavana, but and if not, you're not yotze. So there's Rabbeinu Yonah in Brachas, which talks about someone's walking by shore, they hear the shofar, gets into whether mitzvah strichas kavana, mitzvah ein strichas kavana, a whole discussion on that. But the mitzvah strichas kavana or not. So Rabbeinu Yonah has a klal. When do we say that even if you don't have kavana, it's a go? A mitzvah sheyesh bo maisa. If the action was involved, so we assume the action talks louder than words you had in mind. But if it's only a mitzvah, if it's a passive mitzvah, so then we wouldn't say mitzvah, mitzvah strichas kavana. So the Torah describes the mitzvah of shofar in two ways. It's referred to a Yom Trua and a Zichron Trua. So what do we need two psukim to describe the same mitzvah? What do we need? What is the Yom Trua? So Rav Soloveitchik explains it's not two different days like the Yerushalmi said. The Yom Trua is referring to Rosh HaShana B'chol and Zichron Trua Rosh HaShana B'Shabbos. But it's telling me something fundamental about the mitzvah of shofar. It's the two different aspects to the mitzvah of shofar. It's a Yom Trua, it's the Maisa mitzvah of blowing the shofar, and it's a Zichron Trua. Usually it's enough, you just eat the matzah, you swallow it, you shake the lulav, you fulfill your mitzvah. But when it comes to shofar, that's not enough. It's not enough just to hear the shofar, to blow the shofar, but you need a zichron. It has to be a turning inward. As the Rambam writes in Hilchos Shofar, it's like an alarm clock. Uru yishena mishanaskam, wake up from your deep sleep. You have to wake up. And that's how, so the Rav elaborated how shofar is an Indian of tefillah, that he called it the inarticulate cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we read the Siddur in theory, we're reading words. For some people it might be inarticulate, but the words, you're reading words, and that's the Siddur. But when it comes to shofar, it's even on a higher level. It's a cry of a child, it's the cry going straight to Shamayim. And that's how he explained, he had different proofs to this yesod. So we see many comparisons between shofar and tefillah. Number one, where do we blow the shofar? Especially the Nusach Svar, you blow the shofar in the silent Shemona Esrei, in the middle of davening, in the middle of Omei Lefnei Hashchina. We don't eat matzah in the middle of davening. We don't shake the lulav in the middle of Shemona Esrei. So it must be there's an inherent link between shofar and tefillah. As tefillah, we talk about tefillah as davening, but tefillah actually means Shemona Esrei. That's the essence of the tefillah. Or we find shofar kafuf. The shofar has to be bent over. We don't have a straight shofar. It's usually in different shapes, because just like by davening, the Mishnah tells us in the 5th parak in Brachas we should be bent over when we're davening. We shouldn't be so haughty. We should, realize we're talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should show some anivus to be a little humble. So to the shofar.
Is the shofar must be bent? Is that halakha?
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. I'm saying, could be, it could be a din lechatchila. The bottom line, if it's still a shofar, but it's like if you daven without being kafar v'yotze, it's just not the ideal. And that's why we have the apparent contradiction. The Gemara, whether mitzvahs strichas kavana or not, the mitzvahs require intent. Everyone agrees mitzvahs require intent before you do the mitzvah, but post facto do we say mitzvahs require intent? So the Rambam has an apparent. The Rambam in Hilchos Matzah says that kafay ve'achol matzah. You could be walking home from shul leil Pesach, and you got mugged. Someone puts a gun to your head and says, "I know it's Pesach. Yesh shmur matzah," and he shoves it down your throat, and you have no kavanah. You don't even want to eat it. The Gemara says yotza, and the Rambam codifies it. You fulfill your mitzvah. So we see from the Rambam in Hilchos Matzah, mitzvahs ain't strichas kavana. On the other hand, by shofar, the Rambam writes, if I'm blowing the shofar and I have you in mind, but you don't have a mind, or the Baal Takeya has you in mind, but you don't, you're not yotzi until both of you have kavana. So the Rambam is pretty clear when it comes to Hilchos shofar, you need kavana. So how come when it comes to shofar he seems to say mitzvah strichas kavana? When it comes to Hilchos Matzah he says not. So the many answers, but Rav Soloveitchik explained, because really the Rambam paskins mitzvahs ain't strichas kavana. However, shofar is tefillah, and we know the halacha is the Rambam's explicit by tefillah. Called tefillah below kavana ain't tefillah. It's not like it's a technical detail in the mitzvah of lulav, of sukkah. The whole essence of tefillah is realize you're standing omei lefnei hashchina. You're in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav Chaim in the Rambam, about the Rambam, on one hand he says for the first bracha Shemona Esrei you need kavanah. On the other hand he says for the whole davening. So Rav Chaim says we're talking about two different types of kavanas. One is the omei lefnei hashchina. That's why. But then that's what the Chaz is saying. Then we're all in trouble. Then if you need that kavanah, so therefore can't mean that it needs more of an aware, as opposed to that, right? And that's what they point out, that they discussed. We know originally in Minat Torah all you needed was 9 shofar blasts, because we have a tradition. The Torah tells us trua 3 times. So we have a tradition before and after every trua we have a tekiah. So. And then later on, they moved to 30, and we do 100 today. So there's a whole discussion, well, where were the original ones and which were the ones later on? So the Baal Amor Shita is that the original tekiyas were done in the Shemona Esrei. Those are the original tekiyas. And later on, because people or older people got sick. They couldn't stay for the whole davening. They didn't want to leave town without davening. So they went ahead and they instituted 30 tekiyas before Musaf. So that's how he explains it. He says we have a machlokes rishonim. What bracha do you make on shofar? Is it a bracha on tekiyah shofar or lishmoa kol shofar? So why didn't the Gemara tell us the bracha? Because the Baal Moshe says because originally the only tekiyas were done al seder shmona esrei. So you don't make a bracha on a bracha if the whole brachas were given. So therefore, so once it was moved to before Musaf, so you could have a discussion. So what does the Rav point out? We see the whole, what used to be the brachas of the Shmona Esrei, the Tfilas Musaf. So we see an inherent link between the mitzvah of Tfilah and the mitzvah of Shofar. In fact, that's what we have also. Another Gemara points out, let's say you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and you're in between two towns. One town has a shofar, but they don't have magzarim, they don't have sidurim. So the choice is between, let's say, davening the Musaf Rosh HaShana, or any davening, or hearing the shofar. So the Gemara says you go to the town where the shofar is. So the Gemara says why? Because hadaraisa hadarabanan.
Yes.
Shofar is daraisa, shofar is biblical. Tfilat Musaf, even on Rosh Hashanah, is only derabanan. So the Mefarish Shemeas, the Chasim Sofer, of Selevan, Rashi seems to go against this Gemara because it's a pasuk in Parashas Emor, Zichron Trua, and Rashi says that's referring to Amiras Malchia Shofars of Zichronis. When you read the psukim about the Malchia Shofars, that's how you fulfill the mitzvah in Torah of Zichron Trua. So it's mashma from Rashi that it's a deraisa reading. So how come the Gemara? But the Gemara here says, hear the shofar, not don't go to not the Musaf because that's only to Rabbanan. So it's a kasha on Rashi. So Rav Selevan explains it's no kasha because the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah is talking about davening alone. Obviously you don't have a shofar. So when you just read the psukim about the shofar, Malchios and Zichronos, so that's only to Rabbanan. But together with the kol shofar, together with the voice of the shofar, when you do it together, that raises tefillah to a din deraisa. The shofar itself is a form of tefillah.
It's the whole tefillah.
So you do shofar in the context of that, then it raises it to a level. That's what the Rashi means. Together with the shofar, raises the whole tefillah to a deraisa. But the Gemara is talking about when you did stam, you davening without the shofar, that would only be a din derabanan. And that's how they explains as well. The Gemara talks about, we have a concept of ein kategor nata sanegor, that usually it's not a good idea to have the defense attorney and the prosecutor on the same side. That happens all the time today, conflict of interest, but in theory you're not supposed to have that. It's usually not a good idea. It's ein kategor, the prosecutor, it can't be the defendant. Yeah. So the Gemara talks about a shofar shel para. Even though, strictly speaking, you could use any shofar for the mitzvah, but a shofar shel para, the Gemara says you shouldn't use. And why? Because a shofar shel para, because en katego nasa sanega, because the gold, the calf. But the Gemara talks about that we only say en katego nasa sanegor in the Beis HaMikdash because the Kohen Gadol only wore gold in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara answers, no, that shofar is called a fnimdaming. When you're blowing shofar, it's like you're standing in front of the Kodesh. What's the pshat? A shofar is a din in tefillah. You're omei lefnei Hashem, and that's the yisod. Yom Trua is the ma'isa mitzvah blowing the shofar, but that's not enough. You need a zikron trua. It has to be a turning inward, and that's why we need both aspects to fulfill our mitzvah of shofar.